I'm Dr. Ryan Alcantara. I'm the Career Services Manager here at USC Rossier, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the USC Rossier Executive Search Firm Series, and it's the Community College edition. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Monte Perez, who is part of the Association of Community College Trustees, also known as ACCT searches. And ACCT searches run community college searches around the country. I'm on your listserv, Monte, and I get those notifications all the time, and I'm really impressed by just the breadth of opportunities that you all post. So I'll just mention, as we get started, I wanted to share that we are running this as a Zoom meeting rather than a Zoom webinar to encourage discussion and engagement with our presenter. So please turn on your cameras if you're able to, and certainly when we move into the Q&A portion, that would be great. And when we do get to questions, raise your hand so that you'll be able to ask the question directly to our presenter. And so with that, let me do a quick introduction of Dr. Perez, who retired in July 2021 after a distinguished career in higher education and senior leadership with the California community colleges. Dr. Perez continues to provide consultant services for presidents, board of trustees, and public and private organizations to advance quality, equity, and excellence in education. In 2022, he responded to a call for service in the California community colleges and became the interim president of Fullerton College in July, while that is part of the North Orange County Community College District. So served as interim president as they were conducting a search for their permanent president. Dr. Perez began his higher education career as the assistant director of admissions at Stanford University. Subsequently, he served as the director of the Educational Opportunity Program and Support Service, Student Support Services at California State University, Los Angeles, while also teaching political science and Chicano studies. He implemented numerous outreach and retention programs at Stanford and Cal State L.A., was selected as a policy fellow for the U.S. Department of Education, and became the Secretary's senior policy analyst with expertise in financial aid, career education trio, and youth employment. Upon returning to California, he was appointed the Director of Community and Organizational Relations for the Educational Testing Services Western Regional Office, and later promoted to the Regional Office Director. And in 1997, joined the National Hispanic University in San Jose, California, as the Director of Institutional Research, and was promoted to Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs. He engineered the successful WASC accreditation for them. In 2004, Dr. Perez was selected as the Vice President of Student Services at Golden West Community College in Huntington Beach, where he was a senior administrator engaged in construction, enrollment management, accreditation, and fiscal management. And then on July 1st, 2008, Dr. Perez became the president of the Moreno Valley campus in the Inland Empire here in Southern California. Dr. Perez assumed the presidency at Los Angeles Mission College, which is in May 2011, which is part of the Los Angeles Community College District. He has also served as the chairman of the National Board of Governors for the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities. In 2017, was appointed as a trustee to the Los Angeles County Board of Education. Dr. Perez is also the chair of the Greater Los Angeles Education Foundation, established to serve K through 12 districts, and the Los Angeles County Office of Education. Dr. Perez graduated from James A. Garfield High School in East Los Angeles, obtained his bachelor's degree in social science government at Cal State Los Angeles, and his master's and PhD in public policy and administration from the University of Southern California. Right on. Dr. Monte Perez, what an absolutely amazing career. I had to highlight that just to give our participants a sense of the breadth of experience. As much as we're spending time here talking about community colleges, you've really moved from sector to sector. And I know those were some of the questions that had come up in some of the initial questions that were submitted. But welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today to share your story and provide insights to working with searches for leadership positions in the community college sector. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Alcantara. I appreciate it. The introduction. Thank you all for attending. I'm privileged to be an SC grad, and I have to tell you, SC really prepared me for all those responsibilities that I pursued early in my career and onward. There's a lot of stories about that, but bottom line is I was able to compete with Harvard and Georgetown and University of Chicago when I was a policy analyst and really perform well because I got good training, but also the experience of growing up in East Los Angeles and experience in many of the issues that our students are facing with regard to equity and higher education. Uh, I did get the questions, and I am now consulting, one of which is with the Association of Community Colleges and Trustees, helping them with searches, also board governance. That's the other aspect of ACCT is not only the searches, but also working with the Board of Trustees on a national basis. And so I kind of quickly wanted to give you some slides about what ACCT is, what they do. So I'm going to ask Tom or Dr. Alcaraz to kind of put it up there. So this is a quick overview of search services at the Association of Community College Trustees. Next slide, please. Julie Golder is the VP of Search Services. I report to her, went on assignment, and she's well versed in the background of ACCT and really very helpful throughout the country. Next slide. So we represent 6,500 board members. Basically, we're a Board of Trustees National Association. So we represent them. We have annual conferences too. One is national, and then we have a legislative focusing on community college issues and higher education, both at the state and federal level. So our role is to assist the trustees and the board of trustees with leadership, training, governance, and search services. And we've conducted 600 searches over the last 50 years. Next slide, please. So with regard to community colleges, we work closely with the boards, and we also have experience in general higher education, both public and private, four-year and technical schools and others. We recognize in community colleges the average, and this is happening across higher education, of presidencies is 3 to 4 years. So it is a national crisis, if you will, because leadership is revolving, and there's a lot of reasons for that, particularly after the pandemic, a lot of retirements, but also burnout. And the job in many ways is very tough, and I'll talk more about that in terms of it being thankless in so many ways in senior leadership positions and presidencies. But we provide executive services to the community colleges through public forum, in-person interviews, and we make sure what we call fit, and often fit is, I think, somewhat of a negative term, because what does fit mean? I mean, do you fit in Texas or Alabama, or do you fit in LA, or cultures are so different? So that's something I want to talk a little bit about. Next slide, please. So basically, this is our process. We work with the college, they contract us, we announce the search. Then we have a candidate review search committee. Now, with community colleges and four-year, you have committees of faculty and classified staff and administrators and a student now and then. and we encourage them to always have student involvement, that will review the applications. And the applications are very well connected to human resources for that particular district. So we're careful to follow all the HR policies so we don't violate, and the district doesn't violate confidentiality, and so forth. Then we have the first round of interviews. That's really, really important, and I'll talk more about that. That first round is done by the search committee. They come up with their questions, and during this whole period of time, as search consultants, we work directly with you, preparing you, giving you an idea of what to expect, kind of where the search committee is going. It's spelled out in the qualifications in terms of minimum qualifications, which you have to meet. For instance, master's or doctorate, what are the minimums they have, and then preferred qualifications, which is where we help you the most. Then, if you get selected, let's say there's 45 applications. The search committee looks at 13 that they select for interviews. And the interviews now are in person. During the pandemic, they were on Zoom, which was a difficult process because it's different being in person as in Zoom. But now they're in person and they fly you out, they pay for the whole thing. And then you interview, usually 1 hour, and there's a set of questions, and you get those questions 15 minutes prior to the interview. And then you get to get interviewed. Out of the 13, they usually select presidents, make the final selection, usually chancellors, 3 to 5 candidates. They want to see usually 5 candidates. And community colleges are pushing very hard for equity and diversity. So the president instructs those search committees to ensure that women and people of color are given ample consideration. Then you have the final interview by the trustees and chancellor or president, and the announcement is made. Usually in between that final interview, during that final interview, there's a forum in which the 5 finalists will speak to the entire campus, which is scheduled by the campus, but the search consultant moderates it. We usually have prepared questions from the campus for the 5 finalists, and then the community can give their advice. The faculty as well as external community who attend can give their advice about what they think about the public forum. But the final decision is the president, chancellor, and the board of trustees. They're the ones that make the final decision. And then we make the announcement. Next slide, please.
Just real quick, Monte, what I want to just point out to folks is really, the search firm in that first step is very much engaged with candidates. And that's the big differentiator between a search where you're just directly applying to the school versus one that's hosted by the search firm. And I know we'll talk more about it, but this slide gives a good kind of sense of how that works. So there's oftentimes informal conversations that take place. The search firm is the emails that I mentioned is sending out direct emails, invitations to their database of potential client or candidates or potential candidates, I should say. And you as somebody that's interested or maybe nominated could have some informal conversations with the consultants. And so that's a big differentiator versus just applying and waiting to hear from that committee about that first step in the search process.
That's huge. That's so true. I think the next slide kind of indicates the benefits, one of which is personalized support, where you do have conversations with a search consultant. You can ask questions. The search consultant can give you some ideas about the committee and some of the preferences. It's not about breaking confidentiality, but giving you an idea of what the culture of the campus, kind of what they're looking for, what they've been through historically, because many of these campuses have had uh, acting vice presidents 3 or 4 in a row. They're kind of tired of that. They're ready for a permanent, but they haven't found a permanent that would stay there. So that happens. Then you got the issue of restructuring of the campus, and I'll talk more about the culture of the campus with regard to faculty and community colleges. Faculty play as well as 4-year higher education, but in many ways, community colleges faculty play a huge role on governance of the campus because we have what we call shared governance. And a 4-year has that, but in prominence of the Senate, but the 2 years have a rather, uh, I can put it, a diverse set of actors. You have faculty and classified staff have a role too. 4-year classified staff aren't necessarily your janitors, your cafeteria workers aren't necessarily all that influential, but in 2 year they're very influential. Bottom line is because they raise money for board of trustees who are elected to serve as a board of trustee. And I'll talk more about that. So it's a confidential, streamlined process. We do robust recruitment, and we assist you with the committee, and we assist the committee in facilitating getting them to come up with coherent ideas about what they're looking for and how do you search for that. And final slide, I think, is the next one. We'll give you market insights about what's going on, active feedback about your application, and helping you once you've gone through the process, whether it's successful or not. We will work with you about what you could have done differently if you didn't get the job for the next round. I mean, it took me 7 interviews to become a president, and I learned a lot in those 7 interviews. I always made it to the finals, but I couldn't get over the hump, and there were reasons for that, and I learned from that. So they were helpful um, during that, as we say, a supportive partner, giving you advice and encouraging you to continue. And then we recruit candidates one-on-one. We look across the country. It's national search for these, whether it's Arizona or California or Texas. We look nationally for candidates to that fit the profile that want to move up from a dean to a vice president or go into deanships. Um, and then we have a robust community college network to work with and a database that we've built over the years. And we do a national marketing campaign. And that's why we get hired by the districts because they know we have that ability to search on a national basis. And I think that's it. So we have questions, and I did get prepared questions from you, but are there any questions about the slides real quick that I can address right now? All right. I think that Dr. Ryan gave me a overview of who I am, but I must say the key for me has been able to work in different sectors of higher education, and understanding how that works. And I just read a paper the other day about Stanford and what they're going through with this whole issue of what we're all going through in higher education on the Gaza Israeli situation. And then I compared it to community colleges, what they're going through, and I'm saying, yes, we're going through the same thing, but there's some very important differences about how we're handling that because we handle a lot of equity, diversity issues a little bit differently than elite universities do. And I can talk more about that later. But the point I'm making is, and then I worked at private sector with the Educational Testing Service and how they make decisions, which is not shared governance decisions. It's basically corporate. And you have people we report to and make business decisions. And then working for the Department of Education was amazing, and what we're looking at with regard to national policy. But um, recently, I talked to some business people that are trying to encourage housing at community colleges, which is a brand new thing for community colleges. In fact, Dr. Ryan and I talked about that, and their approach is a business model. And I keep trying to tell them you can't talk to higher education leadership in just a business model. It just that, I get it why you're saying it that way, but we have all these other concerns, all these other um, issues that we have to take in consideration. Uh, Enrollment, equity, um, accreditation. I mean, these are all things that we have to work with. So anyway, I only bring that up because coming from the different sectors, I was able to learn early on that I found community colleges in 2004 to be really my home. That's really where my heart was in all the work I did. I mean, I did all this diversity work, equity work in different sectors, but it was really when I got to community colleges where I said, that's who I want to work with. Young people and adults, older adults, who have potential but didn't quite find their place in education. And so, how do we turn them around and give them the opportunity to pursue their dreams? So, that's what the community colleges offer. Now, is it an easy job? No, it's it's rather challenging uh, because you're dealing with so many human beings, and they're not only the students, the community, but your internal faculty and staff. So the first question that was asked had to do, how do you move from military leadership to education? And I applaud military leadership because you learn the chain of command, you learn character, you're looking out for your comrades, and you're understanding others. And all that is good. However, the difference in higher ed, in particular community colleges, is you have to be nimble. You have to be accommodating to a variety of viewpoints. And you have to navigate disagreement because you're going to have disagreement. Not everybody's going to agree with your leadership and where you're going, or even your board of trustees leadership. They're all going to have their ideas about what they need. And of course, the faculty and classified unions want compensation. They want to increase their ability to have influence. So you have to work with that. And basically, the big difference is in community colleges, because we have AB Assembly Bill 1725 that was 25 years ago, which called for shared governance, meaning the decisions by the leadership of the campus have to be shared with faculty and with staff, and come up with a decision. So what you're doing is you're navigating that process. When I came aboard, and luckily I came from the different sectors, when I started 20 years ago, it was like, oh my God, they're telling us what to do. And I finally said, you could utilize what they're giving you to get what you want done, but you need to work with them. The issue for me was early on, a lot of leadership wasn't transparent with information. They weren't telling the truth or not the truth. They weren't telling what was going on budgetarily wise or what was going on with accreditation. So I thought the way shared governance works is you have to be transparent. You have to tell everybody absolute what's going on, and they'll get it. They'll say, "Well, yeah, you got a point. Maybe we should move in this direction." So that's a big issue, the difference between military leadership and that. So you have to be nimble and be willing to accommodate and navigate a variety of viewpoints. Uh, and then coming from the 4 year to a 2 year, first of all, the tenure process different. Um, We still have a 4-year tenure process for community colleges, but it's all based on teaching. We don't publish in community colleges. That's not our role. Our role is to be teachers, and that's the way it was set up. Remember, community colleges came out of K-12. We're K-14 system, if you will. And that's always been an interesting battle. Are we higher ed or are we still part of K-12, K-14? And our funding is Proposition 98. So Prop 98 is guaranteed funding by the state of California for K-12. And then community colleges, we get 11% of that. So, the billions of dollars that are set aside, guaranteed for K-12, we get 11% of that. Different from UC and CSU. They have their own budgetary process. So we're still tied to K-12 in that sense. And a lot of our policy is education code policy. It's K-12 policy. So, you got to learn education code. And what does it say about delivery of curriculum, delivery of teaching, all of that? And so we're really kind of interesting community colleges because we're in the middle. We're higher ed, but we're also very tied to the K-12 world. So we don't need to publish. We're primarily teaching. 4 years academic excellence. Ours is also excellence, but more about excellence in serving students because we have non-credit programs, credit programs. Transfer is part of what we do, of course. So we have to have academic quality so the UC and CSU and the elites will accept our lower division courses, but we also have a workforce agenda. And that's happened particularly in the last 10 years. Because remember, K-12 got rid of occupational education about 30 years ago. You used to be able to get welding and all those trades in K-12, but they cut it out. And so what happened is over time, the state of California and others realized, oh, we shouldn't have done that. We're going to give that now to the community colleges. And you have technical community colleges that have been around a long time. But now all of us in community colleges have that responsibility of what we call career technical education. So if you're a president or a vice president, you got to understand not only academic quality, you have to understand workforce, industry. What do they want? How do we prepare 21st century employees? So it's a bigger portfolio in that regard. We're very connected to K-12, UC, CSU, and others. Academic Senate has great prominence. So does our Academic Senate. We have what we call the 10 plus. And those are agreements that there are 10 things that are exclusive for faculty. Huge is curriculum. Now, if you're a president or a vice president of academic affairs, you can't invade curriculum. That's their thing. Now, you can advise, you can give support, you can give the resources needed to create curriculum that is needed, but you cannot control that. That is their primary role. And so that's the 10 plus. The plus is sometimes where the academic senate says, oh, we have more to do. We're going to tell you how to construct buildings. Well, yeah, you can give input on how you want to do your art building because you're teaching the art courses. However, that decision is administration. We're the ones that have to decide how much it costs, how does it get done, and so forth. And interestingly enough, community colleges pay higher than CSU. Our pay is better. And the big factor is we're a state system, but we're not a state system. CSU has a statewide board of trustees. UC has a statewide regents and system-wide offices. We have a system-wide office. with the Board of Governors, but we have 76 local offices, 76 local districts. Now, the state says to us, a Riverside, let's take that for instance. Oh, we think you should be looking at diversity and equity, blah, blah, blah. But it's up to that Riverside district to say we're going to implement policy for that. And if they don't want to do it that way, they don't have to. It depends on the culture of that community. So that's an interesting parameter for leadership in community colleges. You have to know your state, know where they're going, but you have to really know your local district and what the culture and the values of that district are and how you're going to implement change for the best for the future for your students. We don't require doctorates to teach, just need a master's or even to be a leader, a master's. Although many colleges prefer it, we'll say that, but the requirement is a master's. Then I'll finish up with a couple more because I want to kick it off to the group. There were other.
If I could just interrupt, because I think it's really helpful to talk about those kind of differing points of the community college but looking at that from an applicant's point of view. So if you spent time in the 4K in the 4-year environment, knowing that there's a much more diverse set of stakeholders that you need to be responsive to, how have you, both as an applicant as well as a search consultant, navigated that? How do you demonstrate that both to the committee and to the president or chancellor, as you're applying through that process to show that, I've got all this background in higher ed and I believe it transfers over to the community college setting. What have you seen that kind of resonates?
I think the key is, as an applicant, is to do your homework and research that district, that college, their history, their culture, their accreditation status, the issues. And then you bring to bear those qualities you bring to that to help them get to the next step, what they're looking for. That's where the search consultant can help you. Oh, they're really looking for somebody who can help them with their workforce program. It's been very nascent. It had just starting. And so what can you offer to say, I've done this, I've been involved with this activity with nonprofits or with industry. I can bring that to bear with your curriculum to help us move in that direction. It may be budgetary. Big issue across many of the community colleges as 4-year too is enrollment. Oh, gee, we're under enrolled since the pandemic. We've gone down. K-12 is having their issues. What can you help us with that? Well, I've been involved with this. I've been involved with an enrollment plan or implementation where we did these kind of satellites, set up these satellites that fed into our programs. Or I've reached out to communities that nobody's reached out to. There's these communities in your area that could be tapped to bring to the campus. Or there are these organizations that would be willing to. So you do the research, you see what the issues are, and you go, okay, what can I offer them from me and my experience or my involvement in the past or currently that can really bolster the next step, what they're after. So you read up on their strategic goals, that's all in their accreditation reports and where they're going and what their real concerns are. And the search consultant can help you with that. Say, oh, this is what they're really concerned about. So those are some of the things that are helpful as you prepare.
Thank you.
Then finally, I'll look at what skills characteristics are boards seeking in 2024 for community college leaders. They're seeking leadership, of course, that will engage the faculty, that will engage the students, and engage the external community. So you're going to engage them all in a way that's positive, in a direction that the trustees would like to go, and they're planning. You're going to be very much a leader in enrollment and how to bring enrollment, sustained enrollment in terms of retention, graduation, as well as recruitment. You're going to be very knowledgeable of student success, that they're all, and the community colleges are viewing student success holistically now: mental health, homeless, foster, incarcerated. We look at the whole situation as what warriors do too, but more so in a way that this is how we guarantee our enrollment, because we're willing to adapt, be nimble, and look at these different populations and their needs. Uh, Also, safety and security is huge, and particularly in the last 20 years. It's always been an important, but the last 20 years, last 10 years, with campus shootings and all of that, you know, the president now, the VPs are like emergency preparedness, safety, security, be aware of protocols. All of that has to be under your belt to run the college. Very strong 4-year articulation and fundraising. Now, fundraising for community colleges is important because it's rather new. I mean, we haven't really done that kind of work before, like the 4 years, but it's now really important in terms of building our foundations, our alumni. The problem with alumni in community colleges is the alumni of community colleges don't really put money to the community college. They'd rather put it to the 4 year where they graduated from. And so they forget about the 2 year. And here we are, though, the 2 year got you to UCLA or got you to Harvard or wherever you are. It's time for you to pay back to the community colleges. I mean, we started you off. So we're really learning how to do that aspect of it, and that's part of the leadership. Um, and then I'll finish with what what do you mean? Oh, does your firm assist in finding board service opportunities? And my question is, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but yes, we work with boards, and we do have board governance workshops. Now, boards are very interesting. And again, I mentioned 76 boards in California. And then you have statewide boards, like in Louisiana. You have a state board of community colleges. But we work with boards because it's very important that they play a very key role in policy development. And they also, it's very important they stay out of implementation. Some boards get in the way of the chief executive officer and presidents, telling him or her what to do. That's not their job. Their job is to hire, evaluate, and support the implementation of the college. So we work with boards to enhance their understanding of governance and what that means. And then finally, how do you make applications stand out? Respond to the preferred qualifications, experience examples of how you responded to issues that they're facing, and then don't be afraid if you're a faculty member or an assistant dean or dean to be on committees, enrollment committee, accreditation committee, professional development committees. That really is helpful because then they'll look at that and say, oh, this person not only taught and taught well, but also got involved with a variety of committee assignments that are very important. Look at your communication skills is really important. Your verbal proficiencies, if you're bilingual, bicultural is really important. And um, and then finally, make sure you're not only you're involved with these committees excellent teaching, but your letters of commendation from outside organizations are important, and your references are really important. And I have been on committees where the references were lukewarm. You don't want to invite people to write you a reference that's lukewarm. You want good references, good recommendation letters. So know who your references are and what they can highlight. So I hope I've answered some of the prepared questions, Dr. Ryan.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
I'm open
that's
now
great.
to any conversation you want.
Wonderful. We'll open up for questions. If you have got a question, feel free to put your hand up. We've got a couple in the chat, and so I'll go. Jose, you posed the question of how do you see new bachelor's degree efforts to impact hiring of community college leaders and faculty? Maybe we can take that a little bit to the search process, and the initial thing that I think of with that is maybe it's an asset, especially if you come from a 4-year, that can be something to highlight that you've got experience
Oh,
with
absolutely.
curriculum.
Absolutely. In fact, I was involved in some searches where the community colleges had one or two bachelor uh, proposals for the state. And those 4-year individuals that had that experience or 2-year that had done that work were given high marks by the search committee because that's what they wanted. And they're in particular areas right now in California and across the board, more interest around CTE bachelors like nursing
Yeah.
and so forth, which is a big deal right now in California. We have a huge state bill to encourage more nursing bachelors at the community colleges because it's an area that's, lack of, we don't have enough nurses. So, but yeah, it's helpful. And even if you don't have that experience, to be aware, to be conversant, to understand how it's done, what the latest aspects of it are. We have 15 in the state of California right now. They want to increase it to 30. We're piecemealing. They're piecemealing that, unfortunately, but that's where it's at. And see how they went about it and what financial issues they faced because it's financially different when you offer a bachelor's degree than it is AA degree in some ways. There's more expense. Presidents have to deal with that extra expense. How do they get the additional dollars to make sure? So those intricate issues, if you understand them, they'll love it. They'll eat it up because we all want those BA programs at the community colleges.
Well, and I do think, the faculty route or adjunct faculty positions are a good way to demonstrate an interest in community colleges if you're not currently in that. And I wonder if the bachelor's degrees, the expanding curriculum might provide some windows for new opportunities. Although to your point, those bachelor's programs are very specific. There's a whole lot of it should not overlap with what the CSUs and the UCs are offering, but
Yeah.
it could provide some opportunities for new kinds of faculty roles. Great.
Correct.
Bill, why don't you share your question?
Thank you. This has been a very informative discussion and briefing. I think I am one of those who is largely outside of the education space looking to transition in. And I'm probably the guy that dropped the military question in. So 29 years of active duty service, various leadership roles, graduate of the USC OCL program, and want to pivot into the higher ed leadership space. But I found appears to be very insular and difficult to get in, even in the adjunct faculty roles. And so I would appreciate it kind of unpacking that a little bit on how to help folks who are outside that space get into it to then be able to see the opportunity in advance.
That's a great question, Bill. I appreciate it. When I came 20 years ago to this world, I had all that higher ed experience, but community colleges are very insular. It tends to be you grow up in community colleges, you somehow get in, you work your way up, and that's the way it was. And they were very reluctant to take 4-year, even 4-year, and bring them in. and then military or corporate in the private sector. That has changed a lot, not to the degree I'd like, but to answer your question, to pivot into it, the key will be for you to make relationships. A lot of it has to do with relationships, building rapport with community college leaders or department chairs and other faculty. And if your expertise is in a particular area, let's say it's in public administration or it's in business administration, you got that training, uh, then you create that relationship with those individuals at the community colleges, and then you get that adjunct spot. That's how it kind of worked for me. I mean, I couldn't get from the 4-year to the 2-year without that relationship building that I had with decision makers at Golden West College at that time in 2004. And they realized that, yeah, this guy, he had this background that we really need right now, and we're gonna vouch for him or her. So my advice to you is create that relationship, do the teaching, create the comradeship with that department. Once you do that, then things start opening up to you. And then you say, well, I'll get on this committee. And they may not pay you to do that, but you get on that committee. It could be student success committee. It could be accreditation committee, whatever committee they have they're working on. Then you're in a place where you're noticed. And they say, okay, we know Bill and he does good work and we got these things we want to accomplish. The other thing too happens is you could be in the middle of a project of bringing funding to the campus. They're trying to create a better relationship or develop some STEM activity, for instance, let's say science, engineering, or something. And you have that background. And you say, well, I can help bring the dollars. And you help them get those dollars. Then they say, oh, okay, Bill is in a position where he can help us resource-wise. That's kind of how it works. If I hope I answered your question, but kind of get in, relationship building, rapport, get known, and then boom, things start bubbling up.
No, very helpful. I appreciate it. I think perhaps under a false assumption that because it's still in a state entity, right, that there's some governance with respect to the limits of relational hiring and placement compared to transparent public processes where it's a meritocracy, if you will.
Right. And that's why the relationships are important. I mean, each district has their culture and how they move forward. And once you get to know them and get involved with them, good people, they're good people. They just have their own viewpoint about how it to be implemented. Once you get to know them and get involved and help them and be part of that, then things open up to you. Lots of things.
And Bill, it is a very formal process, but I think adjunct hiring happens outside of that. You shouldn't really expect to get an adjunct teaching position just by submitting an application. The way I phrase some of this is informational interviews, and we had a networking your way to success session a few weeks ago, and I'll put a link to that in the chat.
Thank you, Bill. Other questions? Yes, Aristotle.
I believe Andrew had his hand up first.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, Aristotle. Appreciate that. Dr. Perez, thank you so much. I love you talking about what's around the corner for community colleges, workforce and industry, fundraising, the BAs. You started the conversation by talking about cultural fit. You just noted it with Bill's answer. My question, so I'm here in San Diego. I love San Diego, and I'm open as my career grows to other parts of California and cognizant of cultural fit is important. How would one go about getting on the radar of a search firm so that when an opportunity arises, they have, oh, I'll just like Andrew may be a good cultural fit for this community, even though it might not be in my current backyard.
Well, yeah, I think that was one of the questions submitted. Thank you, Andrew. You need to get in touch with ACCT. There are also some California firms that specialize in California. And send your resume and send it to the chief executive officer of that firm and say, I'm interested in pursuing a community college career in leadership or faculty or in administration. And then as things come up, please notify me and I'd be happy to review them. So it's again about relationship building. And I have a good friend. A lot of them are retired presidents or vice presidents that now go into search firms like me as one aspect. And they're open to individuals that are interested. And then they'll keep that in their list of, this is opening up here. Andrew might be interested in that. I'm going to let him know. And then you have a conversation with them and they'll tell you, well, this is what it's about. It's a district that is going through a lot of issues, whatever the issues may be, financial or so forth. Would you be interested? Then what happens is they take your resume and they send it to the institution for review. And the institution will say, the college will say, yeah, we'll be interested in entertaining Andrew. Then the consultant will get back to you and say, yeah, there is a possibility that, they have interest in you. Now, let's go through the formal process. So you go ahead and prepare a nice letter, resume, your interest, your, history, and send it to the appropriate search firms. And then follow up with a phone call. And even if you're in the area, and set up a meeting or even a Zoom meeting to just have that conversation. That's how it all happens. It's going to happen that way.
Brilliant. Thank you. I didn't know it was that firms were that open to.
It's open. They
yeah.
are open because they're looking for talent.
Sure.
As I mentioned early on in this conversation, the average tenure of a president is 3 years. And then you have these VPs and these deans that are jostling here and there. So they're always looking for a pool, so they can draw from, because the colleges are asking the search firms, hey, the colleges are paying the search firms to find talent. So it's up to the search firm to really look for talent. Yeah. So it's I know it's formal, but it's also informal in the sense of you can introduce yourself, create a relationship, have a conversation, be on the on the list.
Brilliant. Thank you, sir. Thank you for team for putting this on. I have to go to daycare. I'll see many of you.
Okay, good.
Very good. And know that you can connect with a lot of search. There's a lot of different search firms, and so it's one of those things that you're not necessarily exclusive as an individual potential candidate to one search firm. Aristotle, and I want to be conscious of time. We'll be wrapping up in just a few minutes, but Aristotle, let's take your question.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Perez. So I was lucky enough to integrate myself from four-year to a community college position here in Maricopa in Arizona, and got to participate in a presidential search committee. And I've noticed that a lot of the candidates for the presidential positions in our district here in Maricopa have come from the Aspen Rising Institute. How important is it for you, if you see yourself being in a president position at a community college, be part of those Aspen Rising Fellows, or be nominated to be part of that? Because I've seen them get a little bit leg up compared to other applicants for those presidential positions within a community college setting.
You raise a good point, and you use the word leg up, and that's true. There's Aspen. There was 2 or 3 others. Excelencia is another one. the one in Florida that I can't remember the name. Back 20 years ago was Community College League or the Community College yeah, league, I think. There were several. And those are good because if you could participate in those and get involved with those, that's one beautiful thing on your resume, and it gives you that extra, push. But I have to say, and this is my own personal feeling, they're great and they're very knowledgeable. I went to the Harvard one, which was 2 weeks, and at Harvard on executive leadership and community colleges they had put, and that was helpful to me. But bottom line is, I felt that a lot of what I knew and could do was really in my work at the college, was really my experience there. And so, but you get a leg up if you join those kind of organizations.
Thank you, Aristotle. I want to be respectful of time. We're almost at time. We've got a couple of things to wrap up. But thank you so much, Dr. Perez. What a pleasure it's been to have you join us here today, share your story, and give some advice of navigating that. Do you have any parting words of advice to our higher ed leaders and folks
Yes.
interested in community colleges?
Absolutely. My advice is don't fall back, move forward with community colleges. We're making a big difference. We're evolving into something very dynamic with regard to higher ed and future workforce. And the mindset of the policymakers and legislators and others is that community colleges are the vehicle for economic development, because we work not only with the PhDs and the researchers and the future scientific revelations that are coming, but we also work with individuals that we need in the infrastructure of America. The trades, the individuals in IT that we're going to need. So now we're being recognized for our multi-purpose aspect. So we have a great portfolio, and then finally we're the equalizer in terms of equity, because America realizes that for low-cost institution like community colleges, the benefits are so much greater in terms of economic stability and equal equity across America. So I encourage you to apply. I encourage you to join us. It's a great institution. Many, many, many benefits from it in your own personal life. And it's not a bad occupation in terms of your future. So I'll leave you with that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And what I'll say for my closing words of advice, don't forget career prep. Thank you all for participating today, but this is something you've got to put time into, regardless of where you're at in your degree, but it becomes increasingly more complicated if you're looking for a pivot. And so we're happy to support that, both by facilitating networking and connections. You want to utilize the Trojan network as you navigate that. To your point, Dr. Perez, about building connections, we do have a networking with higher education professionals event that's next Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. for our students. Registration is open through the end of the week, through Friday, so I'll put that in the chat. Well, we have almost 20 different alums and friends of Rossier, many from the community college area that'll be there, and it's a great opportunity to get to meet people. And then I'll also mention, for those interested in other aspects of education, we have our higher ed and independent schools session for the search firm series that is next Monday. And so if you're interested in other aspects of higher ed outside of community colleges, the registration link is there. And we've rescheduled our K-12 session that was originally scheduled for this week. That has moved to Tuesday, April 16th. And so if you're interested in the K-12 segment of education, you can register at that one. I want to also share my appreciation. Tom Arteaga, our Director of Alumni Engagement, my partner in crime in a lot of these programs and events. Thank you for your support of this event, and I'll turn it over to you to wrap things up.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Dr. Perez, appreciate all the information you shared tonight. Really appreciate great conversations and questions from our guests. Thank you to all of our guests, our students, our alumni, our faculty, staff who joined us today. Please take advantage of a lot of the upcoming events and programs we have available. We've shared some networking resources and tools available as well that I encourage you to take part in. And but thank you all very much for helping us connect tonight, and look forward to seeing you again in the future. And as always, fight on.